Time for our Week 10 Snake Draft right here on the FanDuel Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope pages, getting you set for the Week 10 NFL DFS main slate, doing a Snake Draft over on FanDuel.com and answering your questions about Week 10. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by JJ Zachariason and Brandon Gadula. JJ is the editor-in-chief of numberFire and FanDuel, and JJ, Week 10 slate is looking pretty fun. Couple of shootouts here. How you doing today?
Yeah, it's looking good. Just to go back to what happened last week in the snake draft.
We don't need to go back. Let's not.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
I'm good with it.
Here's the thing, though. We said last week on this show that whoever got third was screwed. And I got third because I didn't get CMC or Dalvin Cook. So at least I have an excuse, Jim.
I have no excuse. I have nothing here. Brandon won last week, as you can see on that graphic there. Brandon, you can gloat. Managing editor of numberFire. You're up 4-3. I've not won since week 3. I don't know why I'm still on this show. What's the point at this point?
I mean, I have 2 wins.
I was going to say, I love that.
But you've won twice more recently since my last win.
I was going to say, you said I'm up 4-3 as if JJ's not a part of it.
Yeah, I'm not a part of this.
But because we host a podcast together, I have I need to beat you. If JJ won 17 times, at least I wouldn't lose to you in any of those. I'd feel fine about that.
Wow.
My pride would not be as impacted because at least I'm not losing to Brandon.
Man, well, I don't really know how to feel, so this is.
I hope you feel insulted. I know you won, but I desperately hope you feel deeply insulted. We're going to get into Week 10 here in just 1 second, but as you can see above us, we got a countdown here because we're giving away a ticket into the FanDuel Sunday Million for week number 10. You can turn $0.00 into $1 million, I guess $300,000, by going to the description over on YouTube.com. Hit the link in the description, enter your email there. We're going to announce the winner later on today. So, go to YouTube, check out the description, click the link, enter your email, get yourself entered. We'll announce the winner later on. Make sure you get that entry in before the clock above us expires for today. Let's dive into this Week 10 slate and try to answer, a couple of big questions around this slate. JJ, Brandon, and I discussed yesterday some hesitance for us around the lower salaried running backs. And I want to get your perspective on this because I don't know. I feel like we can sometimes be a bit of an echo chamber off each other. So I want to get your perspective too. It's not as relevant for the snake draft. Some of these guys could be, but what are your thoughts on the lower salaried running backs for week number 10 in DFS?
Yeah, I'm probably not as worried about a Mike Davis as you might be. The one thing I only know that from talking to you about Mike Davis.
I've been pooping on him on Slack for 5 days now.
No, look, I do think that there's an argument to be made for sure that the true upside in a tournament setting for Mike Davis is not there because Tampa Bay can't stop the run really well. The last time, the thing that I fear all the time with this Tampa Bay defense is that, and we talked about this on the waiver wire show, Jim, but the thing that I fear is that I don't think their secondary is unbelievably special per se. Everything starts and ends with their front seven and generating pressure. And that's what they've been able to do throughout the season. Best pressure rate outside of Pittsburgh in the NFL. But last week and even week 1, they haven't been that great against New Orleans because New Orleans is able to stop that pressure, right? I don't think that's going to happen with Carolina, and that scares me for that offense in general. But the only reason why I'm okay with Davis is, number one, is price, right? It's very cheap, $5,400. But number 2, Tampa Bay has done poorly in terms of running back receptions allowed. So I think there's at least some floor, some semblance of a floor there. But I can understand the argument that there's a lack of ceiling. And I think that's the main argument overall with a lot of those cheaper running backs is where is that ceiling coming from?
Yeah, Mike Davis, Duke Johnson, the 2 central ones we'll be talking about from a lower salary perspective for week number 10. We'll see if either of those guys crack the snake draft here. I would probably guess not, but I think that Davis is at least in the consideration for cracking that. Brandon, I want to talk to you about the 2 shootouts. We got 2 big shootouts on this slate. We got the Rams and the Seahawks, the Bills and the Cardinals. How are you viewing those games from a snake draft perspective? Are they games you're prioritizing when you are making your selections here as well?
Yeah, not for running backs. I think running backs are coming from different games, but wide receiver feels fairly flat. It's a top end if you look at things from a salary perspective, but then you also apply that 2 or 3 person snake draft, it's all the higher salaried receivers. So I think that's pretty flat overall. And for that reason, I'm going to kind of use those games as tiebreakers and probably reach a little bit. It's not to say that, the wide receiver one for me in a snake draft format comes from those games. But once you get maybe into your second receiver, I think those games do get really appealing.
And there are a lot of appealing receivers in those games too, which we'll certainly talk about in a bit. All right, so one final reminder to get your entry in for the FanDuel Sunday Million giveaway. Go to the YouTube description, get that in. Still 9.5 minutes left to get that in, so do so now. JJ, do you want to do the honors and get us started here?
Yeah, got to pull it up real quick.
All right.
Should have probably had it loaded.
I'm not going to pull up the link yet, then, just so
okay.
all of us can't sneak in.
I'm ready to rock.
We're watching you, Oliver. Okay, cool.
Do it quick. Ready?
All right.
And I am entering, and I got the 2. Jim got the 1. Brandon got the 3.
Oh, baby.
Man.
I wanted the 2, though. I wanted the 2. I said that to you guys earlier today.
You did, but this means I get Alvin Kamara, and I'm not going to complain about that. Like, I think the gap between Kamara and Aaron Jones is pretty small, but in general, I just like Alvin Kamara because I can feel better about the snap rates. I know Brandon hates the touchdown distribution on New Orleans, which is justified. I think that that's very well founded. But if I can have Alvin Kamara, I'm going to take Alvin Kamara. Brandon, you're picking third there. Thoughts, feelings around picking third?
Well, I already know it's going to go Kamara, then Aaron Jones. So I'm going to go with Miles Sanders. When I get there, then it kind of opens up. I said it like on our first snake draft of the year that we're probably going to take 3 running backs each every week. This is not one of those weeks.
No.
And it hasn't really worked out that way with the injuries. So I might just go with 2 running backs to start and then just kind of be done. I mean, I know I'm tipping my hand. But I think that might be the right call.
Yeah, I got freaked out there for a second because I didn't realize I was scrolled down and couldn't see Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara, and I was like, "Oh man, like did I mess something up here?" But thankfully, I just had scrolled down too far. So I get Kamara. JJ gets Aaron Jones. JJ, any other considerations there for you, or was it pretty obvious who was the pick there?
Pretty obvious, but I will say there apparently is wind in the forecast in that Green Bay game. Which. You don't care as much at the running back position, but you care from a game script and from a scoring perspective. So I think that's something to at least monitor. There's a guy like DJ Chark with Jair Alexander not playing that hypothetically you would love, but if there is 25-mile-an-hour winds, that should push you off him a little bit at least. So just definitely keep an eye on that.
And I think the good thing for that game overall is that because Jake Luton actually can't throw the ball downfield, cut through some wind, as opposed to the Jaguars' former cornerback, they can at least be more okay there. I don't like Nick Chubb for salary cap formats, but I am going to take Nick Chubb here. Facing the Houston, this player is injured. Yes, I'd like to draft them. Sorry. I think in this matchup, Nick Chubb works. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of his workload and stuff. And for my second pick, I'm picking my favorite receiver for the slate. That's Stephon Diggs. Straight up, I think Stephon Diggs is potentially the wide receiver 1 this week.
If there wasn't this win concern, I would easily go Adams here.
Yeah.
I think. And I'm a little bit worried, too, about DeAndre Hopkins seeing Tre'Davious White. So this is a really weird spot right now. I don't want to stack that Packers game any more than I already am. So I'm going to go with the big playability right now, and I'm going to go with DK Metcalf.
Okay, I like it. That's one of those games we like a lot. So, Brandon, you have 2 picks. You have your 2 running backs, Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs. I assume you're going to go wide receiver here.
Yeah. Like JJ said, I was kind of assuming I would get DK Metcalf there. I did not. But I think you just kind of got to go with the value that's falling. I don't love Devontae Adams. I mean, I love Devontae Adams. There are just issues for DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams, but I think there's really no way you can feel bad about getting both of those guys in your lineup.
So JJ goes my arch nemesis, Cooper Kupp, which means that I'll go Michael Thomas. We'll just stack the Saints here and go with that. And if I want to go with the game stack, I could go with Christian Kirk. I think that's kind of outrageous, though. So I'm just going to Tyler Lockett. It was Lockett or Woods for me with that second receiver pick, but I do think that Lockett is in a pretty good spot here. So JJ, you were up next. You got Kupp, Metcalf, Robinson, and Aaron Jones. So are you thinking quarterback here, or are you waiting? Okay, so Keenan Allen. I think
I should have waited. I just got really anxious. I ended up going wide receiver there because I did see a pretty big drop in the running backs that were remaining.
Yeah.
And I'm really just walking into a scenario with Keenan Allen where he's like a lock to get double-digit targets, right? I mean, that's just what he does now. So, but now I'm back. I have DK Metcalf. I got to probably just stack it with Russell Wilson after getting Cooper Kupp to stack that game. So I'm going to go with that. And it falls nicely to you, Jim, because you got Stephon
Diggs. The best stack on the slate, baby.
Yeah.
Well, no, the best stack is Kyler Murray and Christian Kirk, obviously. So, for a snake draft format, I can settle for Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I got all the banged up guys in this team between Nick Chubb, Michael Thomas. We actually talked a bit about Michael Thomas on the podcast on Thursday in the sense that it's a situation where that game might not be ultra competitive, but situation where we know people probably won't be on Michael Thomas, and I think that it's a pretty good situation to do so, given that people will gravitate towards the guys in the really attractive games, which I will be doing too, to be fully honest. But I think that a pivot off of Alvin Kamara, who should be super popular, I think that Michael Thomas is actually a really good option. I mentioned that Stephon Diggs is my favorite wide receiver for this week. That's because he's getting so much high leverage volume. I like to look at most relevant weeks, most relevant samples. If you look at the most relevant sample for the Bills, that's the games where John Brown has been healthy. Stephon Diggs has 29% of the targets and 42% of the deep targets in those games. Like, I'm going to take that. Like, that's my wide receiver one in this week. So I feel pretty good about this team. JJ, let's go to you here. You did go with Cooper Kupp. I would have taken Cooper Kupp had he been available to me. I think that was a good selection. DK Metcalf really can't go wrong as he can kind of single-handedly win snake drafts. He did get the stack with Russell Wilson. Any big decisions for you throughout this draft?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel – I kind of wanted Josh Jacobs instead of James Robinson just to not have that game stack the way that I have it with the two running backs. It's not like an ideal situation. Obviously, this is a three-man, so you can have a higher floor. That's fine rather than ceiling. But there is some fear there because last week, too, Chris Thompson was back, and Thompson actually saw 4 of the 6 running back targets in that backfield, which we had seen going to James Robinson with Thompson's sideline. So I do think there is some risk with Robinson, but we know that he sees such a high floor with the amount of touches that he sees on early downs. And then I got DK Metcalf. Like I said, I just, I didn't want to stack that game so totally by going with Adams. And then the Hopkins play with Tre'Davious White playing this week or looking like he's going to play this week. I didn't feel great about that matchup or as great. It sounds like Jalen Ramsey's not going to shadow DK Metcalf. So Metcalf, who's just crushing it in that game environment, I really like. And then instead of going with some of the other wide receivers, like I think I took Kupp over Michael Thomas, but instead of choosing one of those wide receivers, I just went with Kupp for the game stack and then obviously finish it off with Russell Wilson.
Just got to hope that Cooper Kupp doesn't fumble for the 15th time, ruining Jared Goff's expected points numbers and just further deepening my hatred for his fumbles. I also do like James Robinson, as you alluded to, because the floor there is really good. We talk about ceiling when it comes to wind games. We looked at this a couple weeks ago on the Heat Check, how much wind impacts stuff. And for running backs, they hit their projections very consistently. So in a 3-person draft, that matters a lot. James Robinson, great matchup against Green Bay as well for when they keep things close. And again, quarterback upgrade for Jacksonville, which should help them keep things close longer as well. So I think that Robinson was the right pick there.
And Chris Conley's back, so.
Oh, yeah, so upgrade for the Jaguars there too. Upgrades across the board. Brandon, you went with Kyler Murray. He is my number 1 quarterback this week. I think that Miles Sanders was a rock star selection there. So you did that, and then you just get a lot of volume at your wide receivers. What are your thoughts on your team here?
I like it. It's unfortunate that I didn't get Aaron Jones or Alvin Kamara, but Miles Sanders was the obvious number 3. And then, like JJ said, it was kind of, I think Josh Jacobs was the right play. I know he had workload concerns last week, but was on the injury report, not on the injury report now. The week before the kind of down week, he had 31 carries. We're really just looking for volume. We do want an upside in this 3-person snake draft, but I would have to think that Josh Jacobs returns more to the role that we kind of know he can get when he is healthy. And then from there, it was just volume at receiver with Devontae and DeAndre Hopkins. And then, Robert Woods was, again, I think like that tiebreaker example that I gave earlier. I think that I just want some exposure to that. And then Kyler was a no-brainer, especially with DeAndre Hopkins already on the team.
And I think that Miles Sanders is an interesting discussion because he's missed a lot of time. That offense is questionable. JJ, both Brandon and I are very in on Miles Sanders despite the long layoff for him. Would you agree with us that he's probably the number 3 running back on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, I wish the game environment was a little bit better, but yeah, his target share when he's been healthy this season and his running back rush share when he's been healthy this season has been elite. When you look at when he's been healthy, it's just that he hasn't been, but it sounds like he's 100%. So I would agree. On this slate, obviously Derrick Henry's already played, Dalvin Cook's on Monday night. Miles Sanders makes a lot of sense in the 3 spot.
So we'll see how Miles Sanders does. Lane Johnson back for the Eagles. I have not seen a final report on Isaac Seumalo if he'll be playing this weekend, but if they get Seumalo and Lane Johnson back, I think that that's going to be a tremendous spot for Miles Sanders, and I think that I agree with Brandon in the selection that he made there. Okay, our contest has closed for the Week 10 Sunday Million giveaway. We'll announce the winner here in just a little bit. But first, let's dive into some questions here over on YouTube. Again, if you want to ask questions, you can do so at YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Periscope. We'll start things off here with YouTube with Joey Salama. He says, hey, guys, pick one at the flex. Giovanni Bernard, Antonio Brown, or Marvin Jones. JJ will give this one to you. You going Gio with Joe Mixon out, AB in his second game with Tampa Bay, or Marvin Jones with Galladay out and Hawkinson at least not at full health.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Washington, they've actually been decent against wide receivers this season, just generally speaking. And it's not, I don't think Marvin Jones is like a must start per se with Galladay out. So I'm probably nixing him. AB has intriguing upside after leading that team in air yards this past week and seeing a decent enough target share, given the fact that he hasn't played football in a year and a half. But I would go with the floor. Honestly, I would say it's a floor ceiling combo for Gio Bernard, even though he's facing Pittsburgh. They've been gashed at times. I mean, it's not like they're just like totally unbeatable. And with Joe Mixon doubtful, I think Gio is going to see a good workload. All
right, let's move to you, Brandon. Another one from Joey here. He wants you to bench a wide receiver, and they're good wide receivers, so it should be a decently, it's an interesting discussion here because he has Tyler Lockett, DJ Chark. There's no Jair Alexander on Sunday, which should bump Chark up. Travis Fulgham, Allen Robinson against Minnesota, or Deontay Johnson facing Cincinnati. Between those 5, who are you lowest on?
Probably Deontay. That's one of the games that we didn't really go over. It was, I think, the least appealing. I know that the Eagles game is not very appealing either, but Travis Fulgham's still very involved. So I would probably lean Deontay because the market shares for Pittsburgh are not necessarily great.
Yeah, and Fulgham, even when they had Rager and Goddard back in Week 8, still had 7 targets, still had 2 downfield targets, so he still had a good workload in that game as well. So I think that bodes well for him. I agree, where I'd probably go Deontay, just because I think that Deontay has the lowest potential to make me regret not using him.
I'm gonna go with Fulgham just to be different.
Yeah. I think that it's between those two. Yeah, I think that like it's one of those two pretty definitively. So like Joey, if you have a strong inclination towards what, like if you are a Steelers fan and want to root for Deontay or you want to hedge, play
that's why JJ did it.
Yes. Yeah. So we heard JJ's thoughts on Giovanni Bernard. So I'm going to ask you this one, Brandon. It's from Tanantha. Thoughts on Gio against that Pittsburgh defense. Gio, from a DFS perspective, his salary's higher than he'd hope at $6,200, but just thoughts overall on Gio against Pittsburgh.
I think he has a lot of the concerns that the other value backs have. I know he had 21 FanDuel points last week, 18 the week before, but the Steelers are so good against the run. They're just a really good defense. I'm very, very worried about the Bengals offense in terms of how they protect Joe Burrow this week. So I don't love Giovanni Bernard from a DFS standpoint this week, but I understand the case for wanting to use him.
Yeah, $6,200 is a pretty high salary, especially when I could just get up to James Robinson and Josh Jacobs, and Miles Sanders, not that much more high salaried. So I think that's the tough thing with Gio. Like from a season long perspective, you can probably feel pretty good about Gio. Yeah. For daily fantasy, though, where we need upside, that's a bit of a different discussion there. All right, let's go to some more questions here over on YouTube. This one's from Francis. 2 questions. We'll go with JJ for the first one and Brandon for the second. JJ, start Derek Carr or Cam Newton? Derek Carr is facing Denver. Cam Newton is facing Baltimore. Who do you prefer between those two?
I actually like Derek Carr this week against a secondary that was banged up last week and just beatable in general. Carr at least gives you a nice floor. He's been like a high-end QB2 this season, and obviously Cam just has a ton of volatility. He's only thrown 3 touchdown passes this year, 2 touchdown passes. The team has thrown 3 touchdown passes. There's just a lot of volatility there because you're just really banking on those rushing touchdowns, and he has a way tougher matchup. So I'm gonna lean Derek Carr.
Yeah, I would agree with that one too. We like the Raiders offense in general. I think that's beneficial for Derek Carr. Brandon, pick 2 between Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore, Duke Johnson. Who are you benching out of that trio?
I mean, if this sounds like a season-long question, I would bench DJ Moore. He's been pretty irrelevant. I mean, you have to check and see if Jerry Jeudy's healthy, but it sounds like he's probably good to go. But
yeah, they said he would be. Yeah.
Over the past 2 games, with Curtis Samuel taking more work away from the receivers, it's not been Robbie Anderson who's been losing it. It's DJ Moore. He has a 12% target share over the past 2 weeks, and frankly, before that, he was pretty boosted by some long touchdowns. So it's been a very disappointing year for DJ Moore. So I think if you could just take the volume with Duke Johnson, I would just bench DJ Moore.
I think that's probably the right way to play things too. The Vic Fangio said today, Jerry Jeudy should be good to go. So I think we can feel good about him in that spot. Tanantha, both Green Bay and New Orleans are heavily favored. Do you prefer one defense over the other? So JJ, let's go to you here. You can choose between the Green Bay defense. They are facing Jacksonville and, again, the best quarterback in football, Jake Luton, or the New Orleans Saints, who are facing Nick Mullins at home. Who do you prefer between those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think just given the uncertainty that we have right now with that Green Bay game and Jair Alexander not playing and just not knowing exactly what Jake Luton is, I think that Roby being out last week really boosted his numbers a bit against Houston, but I might just go with New Orleans. I just think the defensive unit is better. I think it's maybe a little bit safer, but I think they're both like top tier options, so I don't think you can really go wrong.
And the Packers have to contend with probably 8 to 10 targets for Chris Conley. So,
why do we allow you on this?
Anyway,
let's see here. This is from Twan. Chase Edmonds or Duke Johnson? I haven't seen a final word on Kenyon Drake, but it seems like he is trending towards playing. So, Brandon, let's assume that Kenyon Drake does play. We're going Duke Johnson here, right?
Yeah, I think so. We talked about Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds specifically on the podcast on Thursday. And look, I don't know if what Chase Edmonds did last week means he's going to be more involved than he had been. I don't know. I think it might be more of the same. Might be more of the same with Kenyon Drake taking the majority of the work. So I would just go with Duke Johnson there.
Yeah, I think that I would go there too. I think that Edmonds probably going to go back to his regular role. He had a 16% rushing success rate last week, which is not ideal. We have our winner for the FanDuel Sunday Million ticket giveaway. It's Kyle Adam something. Kyle Adam Hindman, I believe. Kyle Adam Hindman. That might be totally wrong, but it's a bunch of letters matched together, so I actually don't know what it is. Regardless, Kyle, you are our winner for the FanDuel Sunday Million. You should get an email with the winner for this week. Just kidding. That might be wrong. Regardless,
is this the Steve Harvey moment?
It might have been someone else. We'll see. Regardless, I don't know. I'm just trying to read what I've been given. So hopefully it's Kyle. If not Kyle, I'm sorry to get your hopes up, but I hope it was you. Regardless, we'll figure that out.
We'll email some people.
Someone will get an email with a FanDuel Sunday Million ticket. If not, I think it's 444. Might as well dive on in yourself. Anyway, this one is from Matt. It says Higgins or Jefferson. I'm assuming they mean T. Higgins because there are now two Higgins we have to worry about. JJ, T. Higgins facing off against Pittsburgh or Justin Jefferson against Chicago this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to lean volume here and probably go with Higgins. I probably feel better about Jefferson's target share, but Minnesota has just been really run heavy. That game environment is not very good. It's not like the Pittsburgh game environment's amazing, but it's very easy to foresee a negative game script and a decent amount of passes for Cincinnati in that game. Again, don't love the defensive line / front seven of Pittsburgh going up against the Cincinnati offensive line. But I think I would lean Higgins there. I think that it's definitely close, but I think I would go with Higgins.
Okay, Matt did clarify it is T. Higgins. So thank you, Matt, for doing that. From Bethany, hey guys, just wanted to say hi. Since I listened to all your other casts, all my questions are answered. Keep up the excellent drafting. And she did say, Brandon, that she loves Chris Conley. So you're not alone.
Who doesn't?
I roast you for being all alone, but apparently it's not just you. Fred Bumgarner over on Facebook. Jamal Williams or Chris Thompson in full PPR. I feel like we got to go Jamal in this one, right? Like Jamal Williams actually gets kind of decent work.
Yeah, my super deep dart throw was Thompson on my podcast this week, just as like a season-long dart throw. Hopefully you don't have to play this guy kind of play, like if there is this negative game script that hits. But Jamal Williams, like if there's a negative game script that hits, that means there's a positive game script for Green Bay, and there's more scoring opportunities for them. So I would go with Jamal over Chris Thompson.
And like Jamal's also just really good at football. Like I think
Chris Thompson's just whatever. Yeah,
and I think that's a good thing. This one's also for JJ from Joey. I got offered Dalvin Cook to trade away Derrick Henry. He's clinched the playoffs already. Would you want to have Derrick Henry for that playoff run if that's the case?
So I actually talked about this on my podcast today, on the Late Round podcast. There was a mailbag question that was exactly this, and my answer to it was, I don't think that I could do it because of the usage that Dalvin Cook sees and the receiving usage that he sees as well. And schedules are good, and that's the reason why Derrick Henry was a buy for me this week is because of that playoff schedule. They're great, but they're not everything, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, it's one of those scenarios where, number one, I would be very, very depressed if I did that trade and then Dalvin Cook ended up outscoring Derrick Henry in the fantasy playoffs. But then number two, if you're making this trade of Dalvin for Derrick Henry, you should be able to get more out of that trade than just giving away Dalvin Cook. You should be able to look at the two rosters and say, where can I upgrade a wide receiver too? Right. So swap some wide receivers or something as well, because right now Dalvin Cook has more value than Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to consider and a great way to think about it too, just because volume does matter too. Kyle, apparently you are the winner, so we were not wrong. Kyle, congratulations.
Never doubted it.
I think they said you're watching on Facebook. So Kyle, thank you for watching the Snake Draft Live. Good luck to you in the Sunday Million. Use that well, and I hope things go well for you. And you can be a couple bucks richer next time you watch coming up on Friday. Question here from D Money. What do you think about streaming the Panthers defense this week at $3,000? Actually, $3,000 on FanDuel? I just want to check this out over here because if they are, that's pretty intriguing. Yeah, they are 3,000. Wow. I've played worse defenses.
Yeah, there have been worse. There have been worse plays out there, but I think we're all probably a little bit nervous about this crazy bounce back that's likely to happen for the Tampa Bay offense, right? Like it's going, it's going to happen. But the thing is, I could see that being some sort of not a lot of points being scored, high floor play, because Tampa Bay is probably going to go with some sort of a run heavy approach against them, or they're going to be able to because Carolina can't stop the run. So, there have been, I liked Atlanta last week, for instance, against, Denver, because Denver's been so bad offensively. But I don't know if you want to punt it. So much variance in defense. Why not?
Jim,
honestly, do it.
Yeah. With the divisional rematch, do you know if that usually that hurts quarterbacks a bit? I don't know if that's
it hurts quarterbacks who are efficient. Tom Brady kind of relies on efficiency. I wouldn't so D Money, I wouldn't actively seek out Carolina. But if you need the $800 discount from Washington or whatever, or the $500 down from Las Vegas, I think there are times where you can do that. That's the way I'd phrase it, I guess, personally. Alvin, this one is for JJ. Is Zeke and Deontay for Taylor and Chark a good idea? So Ezekiel Elliott and Deontay Johnson for Jonathan Taylor and DJ Chark. Is that a good trade?
I would probably say that I wouldn't want to rely on Jonathan Taylor. If you have a decent enough backup right now where you can throw someone in who would give you a baseline and you can just kind of wait it out with Jonathan Taylor, that's fine. But if not, I'd probably just hold tight. I don't even think that the difference between, I think that Chark is an upgrade from Deontay, but I don't think it's massively significant still. I know that what happened last week, but again, Texans secondary was banged up. Jake Luton, we don't know what he is yet.
Best quarterback on the planet.
Yeah, so I'd probably hold tight.
He's the Mike Davis of quarterbacks. That's all we can say. It's Quan Luck. What tight ends do you guys like for Week 10? Brandon, we talked about Austin Hooper quite a bit on the Heat Check yesterday. $5,100. Anyone else you'd want to mention there as being a good tight end for this week?
So Jim doesn't really like him, but I think Evan Ingram is trending back up.
How many rush attempts will he get? How many times will he touch the ball where it is not dependent on Daniel Jones being accurate? That's what I want to know. If you guarantee me 3 rush attempts, which he's kind of like viable for, I'll take it.
27% target share of the past 3 games with Sterling Shepard back. So I like Evan Ingram, Dallas Goedert at 5,800 on FanDuel, Hunter Henry 55, and then Austin Hooper 51. Probably going to be where I am most on FanDuel this week.
I got another one for you. Jacob Hollister, 4,700.
I have sworn off all Seattle tight ends after using a non-zero number of Will Dissly lineups last week, and keep seeing this kind of scraggly looking dude with an 8 on his jersey. Like, oh wow, Will Dissly caught a pass. Nope, it's Greg Olsen. Oh, Will Dissly caught a pass. Nope, it's Jacob Hollister. I've given up. So
I think it's Hollister season. He saw an uptick in target share last week. They actually said they wanted to use him a little bit more. 4,700 if you want to. I mean, Austin Hooper is definitely the optimal play, but if you want to pivot a little bit and get a little bit of a discount, you can go to Jacob Hollister.
His avatar is too small on FanDuel. I mean,
oh, what is this? Let me see here. There's a wide variance in head sizes here. I'm still scrolling, trying to find it. I could have just searched for. Oh yeah, okay. He looks like he's 5'2", which is fine. 5'2" is great.
You get, and plus you're getting in that game environment too. Just don't hate on the head size. I have a huge head. You guys like me enough.
What was it? There was one time where it was like Wendell Smallwood and Joe Mixon were both in play, and Wendell Smallwood's headshot was like 15 times bigger than Joe Mixon. And I couldn't make lineups with them together, but I don't know. Joey clarified he'd be getting Dalvin Cook in that trade, JJ, for the Derrick Henry trade.
Oh, okay.
You want Dalvin there for the workload?
I think I would do it because I think right now it's just logical enough. I get the schedules are tough, but if this bites you, please do not at me, please.
So even when we click on this, you can barely see his head. So this will be our parting view for today is Jacob Hollister's headshot as he stares longingly into your screen to send you off into week number 10.
He plays Jacob Hollister.
You can't even see his chin. Anyway, that's all we got for today here on the Week 10 FanDuel Snake Draft on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope pages. Make sure you are subscribed because on Sunday, JJ will be back to answer your questions, your start-sit questions for week number 10. That is at noon Eastern, all here on these same platforms to get those questions in and get those lineups set. JJ and Brandon, thank you both for the time today. Good luck to you in week 10. We'll see you again next week. Also, big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you, Kyle, and the Sunday Million, and good luck to everyone else with their DFS lineups, their season-long lineups, their dynasty lineups, whatever it may be. We'll talk to you again next week. This has been the Snake Draft live on the FanDuel Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope pages.